Do you feel a hole in your stomach? That silent, aching emptiness you cannot fill. Something is missing, but you don't know what it is. Nietzsche might have an answer. His point of view is different from the modern one. Modern psychology says it's depression and you cannot control it. It just happens without a reason. But Nietzsche, on the other hand, thought there is a reason behind it, and he called it the collapse of meaning. Maybe you haven't noticed it outright, but something inside you might already know. You lack meaning. You find yourself asking, why am I here? Who am I, really? These aren't just random thoughts. They're signs of a deeper unrest. But instead of facing them, we often look for borrowed answers. We chase what others say gives life meaning. Careers, relationships, success, even spirituality. But deep down, something still feels off, because these borrowed meanings aren't truly ours. They're just placeholders, fragile and temporary. And Nietzsche saw this coming. He said, God is dead, and we killed him. But he wasn't just talking about religion. He meant that the foundation of meaning, the ultimate truths people once believed in, were collapsing. For centuries, God had been the source of morality, purpose, and identity. But as science, reason, and modernity took over, those old beliefs began to fade, and with them, so did the sense of meaning they gave us. We killed God, not with violence, but with doubt. And now, we're left with the consequences. A world where the old values no longer guide us, where we have freedom, but no direction, where we can become anything, but don't know what we should become. Nietzsche believed it was the great crisis of our time. Perhaps you lack connection with God, and that is the reason for your emptiness. But if you think that is not the case, you have a good relationship with religion. Then you may try what Nietzsche called the Übermensch. The Übermensch, or Overman, is Nietzsche's answer to a world without absolute meaning. It is not a superhero or a perfect person. It's an ideal, someone who creates their own values instead of borrowing them. Someone who doesn't look to society, tradition, or religion to tell them who they are, but instead digs deep within themselves and decides. It's terrifying because it means you are responsible for your own purpose. There is no script to follow, no external truth to lean on. Only you and the life you are brave enough to shape. The Übermensch doesn't escape the void. He faces it. He walks through the darkness and builds something new in its place, not out of fear, but out of strength. Look around. You can see the collapse of meaning playing out in society all the time. Take the endless scroll of social media, for instance. People chase likes, followers, viral moments, desperately trying to feel seen, important, validated. But these fleeting affirmations rarely fill the emptiness. They're like echoes in an empty room, loud for a moment, then fading away. Or think about the rise of consumer culture. We buy more, consume more, believing new gadgets, clothes, or experiences will make us whole. Yet, even as our material wealth grows, the sense of fulfillment often shrinks. The hunger remains. The movie Fight Club perfectly shows this theory. Look at how careers are changing too. For decades, success meant climbing the ladder, securing a stable job, a steady paycheck. Today, many people are looking to do only something they love, they find meaning in. It's another proof of society losing meaning. If you are already lost, you don't want to do a job that makes you drift away even more. Even in relationships, this crisis appears. People crave connection, but many report feeling lonely, isolated. Why? Because when the foundation of meaning shakes, so do the bonds we build on it. Love and friendship become harder to sustain when we don't know who we are or what we stand for. That's why you might also feel lonely or lost. You need to help yourself first before you can help anyone else. You need to make your own self and not let society or anybody else make you by you copying them. These are all signs of the collapse of meaning Nietzsche described, a world where the old maps no longer guide us. But the challenge and the opportunity is to become the Übermensch, to step into that void, confront it honestly, and create your own meaning. It's not easy, but it might be the only way for you. But don't fool yourself. If you choose this path, it will not be easy. Everything will not make sense immediately. It won't just start getting better and better. First, it might be even worse, because to become the overman, you must destroy parts of yourself. Not physically, but mentally. You have to face everything you've built your identity on and ask, is this really mine, or was it given to me? Most people can't do that, because it means unlearning the narratives you've believed your whole life. It means walking into the dark void of your mind, where your doubts, regrets, and suppressed fears live. It means sitting in silence, not the comfortable kind, but the kind that echoes. And that's terrifying. So instead, we avoid. We distract ourselves with noise, podcasts, endless content, work, news cycles, memes, anything. We convince ourselves we're being productive, informed, even healing. But what we're really doing is running. We fear introspection, not because it's boring, but because it's dangerous. It might show us that we're not who we thought we were, that our relationships are hollow, that our dreams aren't actually ours, that the life we've built was meant for someone else. And so, the void stays. We decorate it, we numb it, but we never face it. Nietzsche believed that only by going into that void, the mind void, can we create something new, something real. But to do that, we have to stop being afraid of our own minds. We have to look into the mirror and not flinch. This is why this channel exists. It exists to guide you through that darkness of the mind and point out to you things you might miss, to tell you things some would rather keep quiet on. One of these things is that suffering is inevitable. Nietzsche believed transformation is impossible without suffering. Not the kind of suffering we glamorize, not the hustle culture version where pain is just a stepping stone to success. He meant real suffering, the kind that strips away your illusions, that breaks you down not to destroy you, but to reveal who you really are beneath all the noise. To Nietzsche, suffering wasn't an obstacle, it was necessary, because only when everything false has collapsed can something true begin to take shape. The Übermensch doesn't avoid pain. He doesn't numb it or run from it. He uses it. He lets it carve him into something deeper, stronger, more honest. And yet, we live in a culture obsessed with comfort. We do everything we can to avoid even mild discomfort. We pop pills for every feeling, distract ourselves from every silence, entertain ourselves into numbness. Pain is seen as a malfunction, not a message. But Nietzsche believed pain carries a message. You are not yet who you could be. That ache you feel, the emptiness, the confusion, the existential dread, it might not be a sign that something's wrong. It might be the beginning of something real, a sign that your old self is cracking, that something in you is trying to be born. But for that to happen, you have to be willing to suffer, not for the sake of suffering, but for the sake of becoming. But you must be careful when transforming, because you can also transform into evil. When in pain, it's very easy for negative or harmful thoughts to take hold. Anger might take over. Let's take heartbreak, for example. After you've been heartbroken, you might want to take revenge by only hurting others. You must be careful, because even though you think you will now only hurt others, you will be hurt in the long run. There is a story from a mysterious author that explains this perfectly. A man fell in love, was taken advantage of, and was heartbroken. He became evil and only took advantage of future relationships. There was a woman who treated him nicely and was perfect for him. She fell in love with him. He didn't know it then and took advantage of her also and broke her heart. After years, the man has changed and tried to apologize to the woman, only to find out she has become what he once was. This story shows that you must control your transformation, because it can ruin you and people you care about. It also teaches you must stay away from evil people, because they will poison your mind with their negativity. They are like zombies. If they bite you with their evil, you will become like them, a zombie. This is why you must control your transformation to be better and not worse. It's not just about going through the pain as fast as you can. It's about controlling that pain and not letting it control you. If you take no action with your consciousness, you will be controlled by your emotions. This type of story is what Nietzsche would call nihilism. When you feel empty, you can have two bad reactions. First, which is seen in the story, is active nihilism. You transform that emptiness and tear things down in anger or rebellion. And then second, passive nihilism. You feel empty, give up, drift, or numb yourself. Active nihilism is the urge to destroy everything, values, traditions, even relationships, in a fit of anger or rebellion. It's tearing down the old world because it no longer satisfies you. Think of the people who burn bridges, lash out, or reject society's rules completely. Sometimes it's a necessary clearing away, but often it's just pain without creation. Like the man in the story who let heartbreak turn him bitter and destructive. Passive nihilism is the opposite. Giving up, feeling the emptiness and retreating into numbness, apathy, or distraction. It's scrolling endlessly on your phone, binge-watching shows to forget yourself, or convincing yourself life has no purpose, so why even try? It's the slow fade of meaninglessness, like drifting without a rudder. Both paths lead to destruction, not creation. But let's take a step back from philosophy for a moment and look at what science says. There's a reason so many people today feel empty, even if their lives seem fine on the surface. And it's not just because of trauma or a bad childhood. It has to do with how our brains are wired and how the modern world hijacks that wiring. Psychologically, emptiness is often a signal. It tells us that our emotional needs, like connection, purpose, creativity, and authenticity, aren't being met. But here's where it gets interesting. Studies in neuroscience show that our brain's reward system, especially the dopaminergic system, is being constantly overstimulated. We are flooded with dopamine hits from social media, fast entertainment, shopping, notifications, tiny bursts of pleasure that give the illusion of fulfillment. But these are short-lived, and over time, they desensitize us. The more dopamine we chase, the harder it becomes to feel real satisfaction from simple, meaningful things, like a conversation, a walk, or deep work. In other words, we're addicted to noise, but starving for depth. This overstimulation also affects our default mode network, a part of the brain associated with self-reflection and introspection. When we're constantly distracted, this network never has a chance to process our emotions or form a coherent sense of self. That's why silence feels scary, why doing nothing feels unbearable, because we've never trained ourselves to just be. Another factor, loneliness. Not just being alone, but feeling alone. Studies have found that chronic loneliness activates the same areas of the brain as physical pain. It actually hurts. And even though we're more connected than ever digitally, we're more isolated emotionally. Nietzsche called it the collapse of meaning. Today, psychologists call it an epidemic of disconnection. Finally, when people suppress their true thoughts and emotions to fit in, to avoid conflict, to meet expectations, it creates cognitive dissonance, a quiet internal war. Over time, this leads to that hollow, numb feeling. Because if you're not living in alignment with your values, your brain knows, and it will let you know through that emptiness. So what you're feeling, that void, that aching sense that something is missing, it's not just in your head. It's biological, it's psychological, and it's cultural. But as Nietzsche would say, just because the old values are gone doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you get to choose what matters. You don't have to look far to see how this emptiness has shaped individuals. and even entire societies. Take Ernest Hemingway, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. He was a man who traveled the world, fought in wars, won the Nobel Prize, and lived a life most people would envy. But despite all his success, he battled with a profound sense of inner emptiness and depression. His stories are full of themes like loss, alienation, and the search for meaning in a world that no longer offers it. Eventually, that emptiness consumed him. He ended his own life. Or look at Kurt Cobain, the voice of a generation. His music captured the frustration and emptiness felt by millions of young people in the 1990s. He had fame, money, love, yet he constantly spoke about how none of it made him feel whole. In his personal journals, he wrote about being trapped in a world that didn't make sense to him, a world that felt fake. And like Hemingway, he couldn't bear the weight of that void. Even entire generations have faced this crisis. Consider post-World War I Europe. After the trauma and chaos of the war, many people felt deeply disillusioned. The old values of honor, religion, and progress had led them straight into bloodshed and ruin. This was the era when Nietzsche's words hit hardest. A world where God was dead and no one knew what to believe anymore. This cultural void gave rise to nihilism, existentialism, and tragically even totalitarian ideologies as people desperately searched for new systems of meaning. Fast forward to today, we see echoes of this in the rise of influencer culture. People who appear to have made it with fame, wealth, beauty, often confess to being depressed, anxious, and unfulfilled. Social media is full of smiling faces, but behind the filters is often a sense of deep isolation. Think of people like Avicii or Chesley Christ, outwardly successful, inwardly suffering. Even the rise of extreme ideologies online, whether political, religious, or conspiracy-based, can be seen as people reaching for certainty in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. When traditional meaning breaks down, people often cling to the first thing that feels solid, even if it's toxic. All of this points to a deeper truth. When meaning collapses, people don't just sit quietly and accept it. They search, they struggle, they sometimes fall. But the danger comes when that search leads to imitation, manipulation, or despair, instead of creation. Maybe you've felt this emptiness too. That moment when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and wondering what the hell any of this is for. Everyone thinks you're okay. You might even smile, go to work, hang out with friends. But inside, it's quiet. Not peaceful, just empty. You feel disconnected to the world, separated. You may be confused and think you don't know anything anymore. You scroll through your phone, hoping something will spark something inside you. A meme, a message, a distraction, anything. But it all fades, and that silence returns. You are hoping something will distract you from that emptiness. It feels like you're drifting, not sinking, not drowning, just floating. Maybe you try to cry, but you can't even do that. It's almost unbearable. You don't know who you are. You are asking yourself that question again and again. Who am I? But can never find the answer. It's not just sadness. It's not just burnout. It's something deeper, something raw. A fracture between who you are and who you thought you were supposed to be. When you think about when you were a kid, you didn't expect this. You had high expectations for the world and for yourself, and then you failed both. You feel like you're not really there, like your body is present, but your soul is somewhere else. And that's the worst part. That guilt. You think, I shouldn't feel this way. Other people have it worse. I have things to be grateful for. But meaning doesn't work like that. You can't force it. You can't fake it. And the more you ignore that emptiness, the louder it gets. Nietzsche wasn't trying to scare us with his philosophy. He was trying to wake us up, to tell us that the world doesn't owe us meaning, that we must create it. And that begins with facing that silence, not running from it. So if you feel that hole in your chest, don't hide from it. Listen to it. It's not there to punish you. It's there to push you towards something real, something yours. You don't have to have the answers right now. You don't even have to know where to begin, but you do have to stop lying to yourself. You do have to be brave enough to look into your own eyes and ask, what do I truly want? Who am I when no one's watching? That's the beginning of meaning, not found, not borrowed, built. So what now? Maybe nothing changes immediately. Maybe tonight you still lie in bed staring at the ceiling. Maybe that emptiness still lingers. But now at least you know what it is. You know you're not broken. You're just unfinished. The void doesn't mean you're lost forever. It means something new is waiting to be built. And maybe, just maybe, that something is you. If you think Nietzsche's solution is valid, tell us in the comments. I hope this video helped you and answered some questions you might have had. Maybe even answered questions you didn't know you were supposed to ask. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. The mind void goes deep, and we are only at the surface of it.